I'm Rob McConnell, and welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Today on the X Zone, are people really being abducted by aliens? Are people really being abducted by aliens? Well, if you were to ask 9-year-old Ryan from Port Colborne, Ontario, he would show you the marks on his hands and tell you about the night he was teleported from his bedroom into a hovering UFO over his home, and about the experiments the aliens conducted on him. Dr. Roger Lear, a medical doctor in California, has extracted 11 implants from people in Canada and the United States who have only one thing in common. They have all had encounters with UFOs. 70% of all Americans believe they have seen a UFO. 40% of them believe they have been abducted. Maybe E.T. never went home. Join me, Rob McConnell, for another story from the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology when next we meet in the X Zone, the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and the X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Now, if you'd like to send me an email and share a story with us, if there's a guest that you'd like us to bring onto the show, or maybe you're looking for someone that we've had on the show who can help you with a problem that you're having pertaining to the paranormal, my email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. Exonation, my first guest tonight is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on the show in the past. L.A. Marzulli is his name, and we're going to be talking to L.A. about the Nephilim, UFOs, ancient prophetic texts, and much more. And during the show, well, preferably after the show, if you'd like to visit his website, www.lamarzulli.net. That's lamarzulli.net. Joining us now from the state of California is L.A. Marzulli. And L.A., welcome back to the X Zone. It has been too long, sir.
Well, it's great to be here again, and thanks for having me on, Rob. I appreciate it.
You're one busy man. We've had a couple of the authors that you represent on the show in the past couple of weeks. You're doing TV, you're doing films, you're doing lectures. Where do you get all the time, L.A.?
I'm actually going on vacation next Tuesday. I can't wait. I can't wait. Oh, my gosh, I need a break.
L.A., what was it that happened in your life that, that pointed you in the direction that you've been following all these years when it comes to the Nephilim, the UFOs, ancient prophetic texts, and much more?
There was a book, I became a Christian 43 years ago, and when I was reading the Bible cover to cover over and over and over again, and this went on for quite a period of time, and doing a deep dive and a deep study, when I got to things like Noah's Ark and Noah and the flood, I was angry. I didn't understand what was happening. I was perplexed. Then you get to the Tower of Babel, and God confuses the language. Finally, you get to Sodom and Gomorrah, and at this point, it's like, wait a minute. Jesus, I get, sort of, but this God of the Old Testament, I'm not buying at all. They can't be the same people. I don't know what I'm looking at, but I'm not a happy camper. Finally, when you get to the conquest of Canaan, and the mandate comes down to wipe everybody out, men, women, children, animals, burn everything. That was I almost threw the Bible against the wall at that point because I didn't understand. It would be it would be years before I found the book that changed my life by my one of my mentors that I had, Dr. I.D.E. Thomas. The book was called The Omega Conspiracy. And that book amplified, uncovered these ancient prophetic texts because he talked about the Nephilim. and the seed war. And the moment we plug the seed war, Genesis 3:15, the seed of a dragon will be at war. The offspring of the dragon, the seed of a dragon, the offspring of a dragon will be at war with the seed, the offspring of the woman. The one coming from the woman, the proto-evangelium, will crush the dragon's head. That is the entire biblical narrative in basically one sentence. Everything, that's the springboard. That's the gateway to understanding the biblical narrative. If we understand Genesis 3:15, it's like a set of dominoes. It goes bam, bam, bam. That book changed my life, completely changed my life in a radical way. And once I got that, then it just blossomed to everything that we're doing. But that was the gateway. That book was the gateway.
Now, what is the significance of the dragon?
Well, the dragon has a lot of different names. Slewfoot, Satan, the accuser, the dragon. I mean, those are just a few of them. In his true form, I believe he was a dragon in his true form. Hard to say what he looks like now. I haven't had a face-to-face with him, and frankly, don't want to have a face-to-face with him. But was he a reptilian of some sort? Well, he appears to Eve that way, and we don't know how long it is that he's appearing to her. I mean, Eve's not taken aback by the talking serpent. She's not. So she's obviously done this before. The question is how many times? How long did it go on before he was able to break her down enough to where she succumbed to his lie? Because that's the lie, which has plagued mankind for millennia. And it sounds like mythos because we're so detached from it, because it's another realm. It would be like going to Mars and then coming back here and trying to tell people, wow, you wouldn't believe what I just saw, what I did, and the gravity or lack of gravity, and there were ancient artifacts there, blah, 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 blah. But if you don't have a camera with you, people are going to kind of scratch their heads going, well, I don't know what you're talking about. It sounds really interesting. Well, that's that whole Genesis garden snake thing. I mean, it's completely out of our realm. We don't really, none of us, myself included, really understand all the cosmic implications that are going on. One of my good friends, my elder brother, Gary Stearman, calls the Garden of Eden the dragon trap. That's what he calls it, the dragon trap. And he's right, because that's, once the dragon comes in, see this, look, we're in a war. I mean, we're in a cosmic war. It's been going on for millennia. It's ramping up. Just look around. It's definitely ramping up. We'll see where it goes and how far it goes. We don't know yet. That's why we're cautious. I'm cautious about stating anything emphatically. What I do know is this, that the protocols of this war we're not privy to. But the dragon trap was Adam and Eve in the garden. That's the trap. And the garden went for the trap, or the dragon went for the trap in the garden, excuse me. The dragon went for it and he was trapped. And that's why the mandate comes down. It's a prophecy. It's the most ancient prophecy in the biblical narrative. Your offspring, your seed will be at war, at enmity with the offspring, the seed of the woman. He, the one coming from the woman, will crush your head. You will bruise his heel. I mean, it's one of the most profound statements to get our heads around. And once we do, like I said, it's the gateway to the rest of the Bible. It's like dominoes. Everything just falls down.
L.A., in your knowledge, are we in the end days as talked about in the book of Revelation?
I would say emphatically yes. There's a couple of very stellar points here. The first is Israel being gathered back into the homeland, which fulfills the prophecy. So that's 1948. The prophecy is, I will gather you from the four corners of the earth and reestablish you in your ancient homeland, never to be moved again. So everybody needs to get that last half of that statement, never to be moved out again. So Israel's back. They're there. And, people, before we get into this, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, most Americans even, don't understand or don't know their history, especially the under 30 crowd. They have no clue. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire that had sided with Germany was dismantled, completely dismantled. Well, not all of it, but a good portion of it. And so the modern day states of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine were created. And the Balfour Declaration gave Palestine to the Jews. So, people talk about land of the sea, and I really don't want to get too political tonight, but the bottom line is that's the old Ottoman Empire. All those nations I just mentioned, every single one of them belonged to the Ottoman Empire. And then Egypt and all of North Africa was part of the Ottoman Empire. So when the Germans lost in World War I, and the Turks who had sided with the Germans, all that was carved up and created those modern day states that we see now. So it's amazing, the anti-Semitism, the vitriol that has come about since October 7th. We were actually supposed to be in Israel on the 4th or the 5th. We were leading a tour there. It was sold out. It's called the Nephilim Tour, on the Trail of a Nephilim Tour. And we go to sites and places that most tours don't go to, because that's ground zero for the Nephilim. But we were at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. I had spoken that previous night, Friday, the 6th, Saturday morning. My wife and I are getting ready to head to Atlanta, and then we were going to bivouac there. And in the following afternoon, we would fly to Israel, take the red eye in. And my friend Bob Ulrich calls and goes, Israel's at war. So I'm online and I see that, oh my gosh, Netanyahu's declared war. That was the end of a tour. Mm-hmm. And obviously I don't think we'll be back there in 2024 at all, the way things are going. But all this, what we're seeing, nation shall rise against nation, check. There'll be wars and rumors of wars, check. Famines, look what's going on in Africa,
yeah, check.
Pestilence, look at what we just came through, for crying out loud. Earthquakes in diverse places and troublesome times, all those things are checked. The question is has there been an increase? And I've charted this. It's in our book and film, Days of Chaos. And we've charted this and kept a close eye on it. And things are definitely heating up to the point where, honestly, Rob, 25 years ago, I would say, we can fix this. Now I won't utter those words. In fact, when I'm at conferences, I ask people, do you think we can fix this? Does anybody in the room think we can fix what's going on? Normally, not a hand goes up, because people realize that we've crossed some sort of a Rubicon. Things aren't the same the way they were. We see the rise of lawlessness in ways that I've never ever seen on this since I've been alive, 73 years now. I'm dumbfounded at some of the things that I'm seeing.
Ellie, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our first break. And explanation. I would guess this hour is Ellie Marzulli, well-known person who talks extensively about the Nephilim, UFOs, ancient prophetic texts, and much, much more. And when we come back from this commercial break, I'd like to talk to Ellie about the UFO scenario as it is today. If you'd like to find out more about L.A., if you'd like to buy his books, if you'd like to buy his videos, just go to one site, www.lamarzulli.net. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us around the world on Classic 1220, streaming classic1220.ca.
You're a well-oiled machine, Rob.
Thanks.
You run a tight ship. No, you really do.
Thank you.
Very
Here we go.
In this dirty old part of the city where the sun refused to shine, people tell me there ain't no use in trying. Now, my girl, you're so young and pretty, and one thing I know is true.
And welcome back. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. My guest this hour is L.A. Marzulli. His website is www.lamarzulli.net. Just a couple of months ago, L.A., they had the congressional hearings where they brought three whistleblowers in front of Congress. And I was sitting there and I was chatting with Kevin Randall at his home in Idaho. And we were anticipating something great, something marvelous. And there's David Grush.
Right.
And they ask him all these questions. And what does he say? Well, I can't discuss them here in public. We have to go basically in private. And this is what happened with the three witnesses. What did you make of the congressional hearings?
Well, it was basically essentially a nothing burger. I mean, this thing is so compartmentalized that when some of these people get up under oath, they are telling the truth. They only know what they know, because everything is so compartmentalized. Grush did say something though that was a huge spike, in my opinion, when Congressman Mace asked him, "Were there bodies retrieved from these crashes?" And he said yes. And then she goes, "Were these biologics human or non-human?" And he looks right up at her, and says the biologics were non-human. Those of us in the field who have studied this for decades know that, for instance, the Roswell crash, bodies were definitely recovered. How do I know that? I've got multiple witnesses that most people don't even know. Colonel Hill is certainly one of them, a deathbed confession that we have, and we show it in the film. But yeah, I mean, that was interesting, but essentially it's a dog and pony show. And what's interesting is one of the congressmen, I forget who it was, stated at sort of the end when they're out in the hallway talking to reporters, it might have been Burkett, but I don't think it was, but it might have been him. And he said, looked right at the camera and he goes, "Well, this isn't our country. We just get to live here." And he's right, because we don't. There is a shadow government. I realize that's the stuff of conspiracy theories, but there is a shadow government. Since we talked last, and I think it's well before 2016, I was threatened by a guy from a deep state. I mean, I was threatened 3 different times in the span of 5 minutes. The guy wanted to meet in Dallas. We met in Dallas at the hotel. I was speaking there. I had a bodyguard with me, and he basically threatened me 3 times for our work on the Kandahar Giant. And he said, "You crossed the line here with us. You're not supposed to do that." So it was very interesting. And I've talked about this numerous times, to get the word out. There is a shadow government in this country. I think the congressman basically stated it. Now, he's an insider. He certainly knows more than I do. And for him to come out with a statement like that, a highly charged statement, this isn't our country anymore. We just get to live here. He's right. That's exactly what's going on.
Why do you need a bodyguard?
I've had death threats, Rob.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Not a lot, but enough to where I make sure wherever we go to speak, you've got really good security.
Oh, my
really
heavens.
Good security.
So what about Roswell? You've done 2 films about Roswell, Roswell Revisited, Exoneration, and Roswell Revisited, The Debris Field. Tell us about those 2 films.
I'd love to. The Roswell Revisited, Exoneration, I interviewed Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr. Maybe a year or 2 before he passed away. So I got to, rub elbows with him, talk to him, interview him. And I've always believed in his narrative, not the official narrative. There are 2 newspapers, articles, headlines that come out in the Roswell Daily, one on the 8th of July, the other one on the 9th. The real story is on the 8th. Army recovers crashed flying saucer. That's there. And then on the 9th, it's all redacted. It was just a weather balloon, and Jesse Marcel Sr. mistook a weather balloon for some sort of an alien crash. But the deeper you go, and the more witnesses we uncovered, like Jesse Marcel's widow, Linda, his daughter, his best friend, Jim and Carolyn Rankin, who had a deathbed confession from Colonel Hill, who was flown to Roswell within 48 hours after the crash, tried to communicate with one of the bodies that was still alive, was unsuccessful in doing that. We've done a deep dive. Then you look at the telegram that General Ramey is holding, never imagining that decades later, David Rudiak, through the use of a computer, will be able to zone in on that, no pun intended. And
oh, come on, I deserve a pun once in a while.
And decipher what it says. And the words disc, bodies, right pat are all there. I mean, it's right there in the telegram. So if it's a weather balloon, why are we hearing about bodies and the word disc is used twice? Why are they using that? And I was at a lecture from a guy from the deep state, actually at Pepperdine University years ago, who went through this long, convoluted was just amazing, actually. Why it was Project Mogul, why these discs that were there, and Gemma Ramey, oh, these were the discs that these were microphones and they were called discs. I mean, it was the Texas two-step in California. It was unbelievable. And I challenged the guy, and, he gave me some ridiculous answer. I just got up and left. I mean, he was there to educate those who would come to the lecture that it was nothing more than a weather balloon. And as we talk about in one of our films, not the Roswell film so much, why is it every 10, 15 years, Roswell case closed? Mm-hmm. So exoneration, these people, the Marcells, went through hell. They were ridiculed, they were maligned. There was always this undercurrent in the military. Well, what really happened? But there's also a deathbed confession from Walter G. Haught. And that was not opened until he passed away. And that you can go online and just pull it up yourself. And he talks about what he saw, what was there, the fact that they passed the wreckage around at a table. General Ramey was there. Jesse Marcel Sr. was there. They had never seen anything like it at all. We've had other witnesses that have handled the metal. There was a man who came to our conference in Lubbock, Texas, whose grandmother, I just love the way this stuff comes out of the woodwork, right? And he showed me the picture. The grandmother worked in Roswell at the Air Force Base for 20 years. She was there when the crash, the whole thing happened. So he's in the car with her. It's a couple of years ago, right before she passed away, okay? And they're out Hangar 84, which is, by the way, we got into Hangar 84, but that's another story. And Hangar 84 is where they store the wreckage and the bodies. So I just filmed him a week ago. It's just an amazing story. And this thing has been sitting there. No one knew about it. He's a nondescript, hardworking guy, but nobody knows who he is. He's not an author or a TV personality, nor was his grandmother. This is one of the more recent ones that we've got. And, he asks her as they're going by Hangar 84, well, what did they do with the bodies? Without hesitation, Rob, without a blink, without hesitation, she goes, they were stored in Hangar 84. And he stops the car. He can't even believe it. Now, the road to Hangar 84 is a 2-lane road, but there's hardly ever anybody on it. And when we were there, there was a guy smoking a cigarette on the other side of the fence. And I ran up to him. I said, look, we're from California. We're a real small film crew. Can we get in here and film? I mean, we're more than happy to remunerate, whatever. So he says, yeah, just come around to the front. So we go running to the front of the building. Now we're in the sort of like the ante room of the hangar. Right. And I'm on the phone with Bull. Bull is the manager of Hangar 84. He says, I'll be down in 20 minutes. Bull comes, he ushers us into a conference room. We film him. He's talking about everything that had happened there, all the lore about Hangar 84. Then he takes us out, and it's all on film. And I'm sitting like a kid in a candy store. I can't even believe I am in Hangar 84, but I am. And it hasn't changed a bit. And according to multiple witnesses, this is where they took the wreckage that was then flown to Wright Field up in Ohio. Wow. So you say, well, LA, that's a lot of hearsay. Granted, you got some witnesses there. I understand that, and we do. We've got a lot of different witnesses that come on the record in the films, which make it, I think, that's why we call it exoneration, because I think we've done our job to exonerate the Marcel name. But in the debris field, we interviewed Frank Kimbler. And Frank is a brilliant man, and he's been out to the debris field numerous times, probably 20 times. And he's recovered artifacts there. He has a metal detector, and he knows where to go. So we drove out to the debris field. First of all, it's an hour outside of Roswell. Then you make a left turn, and you're on a 2-lane road. So there's a 4-lane highway to get you an hour outside of Roswell. It's this interstate to get to this little road. You turn off, you're on a country road. There's nothing around for miles. Free range cattle, some barbed wire fences. Then you make another left turn. Now you're on a cattle road. It's about 30 feet wide. It's all gravel, dust flying everywhere. Free range cattle to the left, free range cattle to the right. We had to stop a couple times as the cattle came across the road. I mean, you're out in the boonies. Then we get to a cattle gate. We open up the cattle gate. Now we're 4-wheeling, very rugged terrain. And after about 20, 30 minutes on that, we are overlooking the debris field. and we go into the debris field. We film there. We fly the drone. Rob, it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's really very, very remote. There's nothing around at all. Nothing. And so Frank Kimbler had been there, like I said, about 20 other times, and he gets his metal detector working. And after like 3 to 5 minutes, he goes, guys, I think I got something. So we go running over, cameras rolling, and he shows us where the hit is. It's very obvious. He takes a little garden spade and he starts digging this thing out. He's down about 6 or 8 inches, and then he finally gets the piece of whatever this thing is out of the ground. And it's a whole sifting process, and it's all on film. And sure enough, it's one of the pieces of the metal. And I'll tell you how we know that from the wreckage. There's a clip that we got that was probably smuggled out of the White Sands testing grounds years ago. It's black and white, and it shows a disc-like object. It's glowing. It's not an airplane. There's no rotor wash, no ring, wings, no tail, nothing like that at all. This is one of theirs, and it's flying, and it hits the ground. It skips on the ground and comes back up, and then does this sort of a long nosedive. And the second time it hits, it just explodes, and the shards from this particular aircraft, whatever it is, they're like bullets out of a gun. So
LA,
even though we know,
LA, we're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here. This is a great place to have a cliffhanger. We're on the debris. All right, we're on the debris field. When we come back, more of this fascinating story from our guest this hour, L.A. Marzulli. His website is lamarzulli.net. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and L.A. and I will be back on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. Don't go away.
In this dirty old part of the city where the sun refused to shine, people tell me there ain't no use in trying. Now, my girl, you're so young and pretty.
Welcome back. L.A. Marzulli is my special guest. lamarzulli.net is his website, and on that website you can get a copy of L.A.'s books, the videos, and much more. lamarzulli.net. And this is the X Zone. We come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here in your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. L.A., first of all, thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and I really appreciate this, but we just have to get the story out.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I appreciate that. So the cliffhanger, to pick up where we were.
Sir.
So we see this, we know that this thing exploded. Jesse Marcel Sr. was in the debris field. Mac Brazel was the rancher. He went into town with some pieces of the wreckage. Jesse Marcel Sr. was dispatched with Mac Brazel. And again, at night, you got to know where you're going. You'll never find it. You'll never find it. That's how remote this place is. So he gets there with Mac Brazel, and he picks up some of this stuff. And he brings it back to his 11-year-old son, wakes up his wife. It's all spread out on the kitchen table and the floor. And he basically says, what you're looking at, you'll probably never see again. This is something from another world. Now, when the craft broke up, that's the first, when it hit, that's the first debris site. But where the bodies were I think, 14, 15 miles away at another debris site. So the bottom line is that's where the actual craft was. So this thing broke up. The debris field was huge. Jesse Marcel Sr., we actually show it in the film. It's a clip where he goes, it was like 3 football fields. It was just everywhere.
Holy cow.
And the foil, there was like this metal. It was like really, really thin. He describes it at the aluminum foil from a cigarette pack, but you couldn't tear it. You couldn't rip it. You beat it with a sledgehammer with not a dent in it. So this is like, we're looking at something that's like nothing in his wheelhouse at all, his grid system to prepare him for this. So when we're out there, we knew what we were looking for. We also knew that they didn't get it all. They just didn't get it all. Because when this thing exploded, it's like firing a 22 shell into the desert. Well, it's not going to be on top of the soil. It's going to bury itself into the ground. And that's what Frank Kimbler discovered. It's his research that we're standing on. He knew what to look for and how to get it. And sure enough, we start digging, and about 6 to 8 inches down, we find this metal piece. We've taken it to labs. We found 2 pieces that day. Frank informed us this is the first time in over 12 years, that any film crew actually, captured the whole thing on film. So this was it. It was huge for us. And when we look at the metal, a metaller just examined it in a lab and said, wherever this came from, it came from a high stress situation. They're looking at severe trauma to the metal. The metal is burned. Once again, it shows high heat. Something very cataclysmic happened to the metal. Frank didn't tell him where it was from or what he thinks it was. So we analyzed the metal, both pieces, 2 different labs. And it's an aluminum alloy that was not created till 1953. But here's the rub. It's not an exact match, Rob. The closest alloy that we have is an aluminum 6000 series, but it's not an exact match. It's not an exact match. And that aluminum series was not created until 1953. So what's that doing in the middle of a debris field out in the middle of nowhere, buried 6 inches below the ground? And again, Frank probably has 10 to 15 metal samples in his collection. We film all that, we show all that. And this looks exactly like the other ones that he got. The same properties, the metal looks, it's folded in on itself too, which is really strange. It's folded in on itself. So it's like, what's that doing in the debris field? What's it doing there? So this is hard evidence, and it's scientific. The alloy was not invented until 1953. So that's 6 years from 1947. So what are we looking at? Is this a hoax? It's not a hoax. It's buried. We show it on film. We found 2 pieces. Both of them were buried.
L.A., in your opinion, if you have this evidence, and I'm sure that Roswell has got to be the best documented crash of all time, whether it be an aircraft crash or whether it be a UFO. Yourself, Kevin Randall, and the list goes on and on and on. Yeah. All this testimony that all you credible researchers and investigators have found, filmed, documented, with everybody today really interested in UFOs and the UFO phenomenon. Why is it such a secret? Why can't the government just come true and say, you know what, guys, you're right. It's a UFO. You know what? We put this under the classification of national security because we're just getting out of World War II. You've got the Army Air Wing where the 2 bombs were flown over to Japan. Right, right. So they could easily explain why they did it. But why haven't they? What's the big secret now?
I think a couple of reasons. The first is they're afraid of the panic. That in 47, War of the Worlds was more than likely very fresh in everybody's mind.
I just want to interject something here. Is it possible that the War of the Worlds was actually a beta test for the UFO scenario?
That's a very interesting concept, right? And I think that's what sort of it came from, to see what the American people would do.
Right.
So 2017 is when we get disclosure on some level. You've got, and I lecture on this all the time, you've got Tucker Carlson and you've got Commander David Fravor on Tucker Carlson. And Tucker says something like, it's on a Friday night, it's the last segment of the show. And he goes, UFOs used to be the stuff of conspiracy theory and tinfoil hat wearing people, but maybe we shouldn't think it anymore. Commander David Fravor joins us tonight, a former F-18 pilot who had an encounter in the Pacific right outside of Los Angeles with a tic-tac shape object. And so you see Tucker, it's a triptych. You see Tucker, Commander Fravor's in the middle, and then they're running the film that he took with the camera from the the FLIR camera in the airplane, or other cameras in the airplane. And so Fravor was there. There's the film. This is disclosure. And the $64,000 question is, when Tucker asked Commander David Fravor, in your opinion, what was this? And Fravor looks right at the camera. Whatever this is from, whatever this was, whatever this was, it was not from this earth. And he stated right on the record, it's not the Chicons, it's not the Russians. Whatever this was not from this earth. So that's the first rung on the ladder of disclosure. We're up around rung 16, 17 right now. And they roll it out on Fox News, at least they used to. That may change. Usually on Tucker. Tucker's no longer there, obviously, because Tucker's audience is conservative Christian for the most part. Think about it. And so they're going to take these people who are religious on some level. They're conservative and they're Christians. As Barack Obama would say, these people cling to their guns and their Bibles, and he's right, we do. But the bottom line is, disclosure was rolled out to see what the people would do. Nobody batted an eyelash. My phone didn't ring. I got a couple of emails. That was it. Since then, you've got David Grush, and you say, well, was he lying? I mean, if he's lying, he's in a world of hurt, because, you're in front of Congress. That's contempt. You don't want to go there. You wind up in the hoosegow. So Grush goes, we've retrieved bodies, biologics from these things that were non-human. Again, my phone doesn't ring. I get a couple of emails. The American people roll over and check out what King Charles is doing, or Taylor Swift, and that's the end of it. It's mind-boggling in some ways, and I think we've been so dumbed down. In one of the books I wrote, the UFO Disclosure of a 70-Year-Old Cover-Up Exposed.
That was a great book, by the way. That was a great book.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was written right after Commander David Fravor was on Tucker Carlson. That was the nexus of it. That's what led to the writing of that book. And in the beginning of that book, there's probably, 10 to 15 pages, just film after film after film, television program, beep, 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 all the way down, page after page of space aliens, UFOs, outer space stuff. It's all there. It's all there. And we have to say, wow, this genre just exploded right around World War II, and then of course afterwards. So it's a very complex subject. They are here. The breeding program is real. I know you spoke to Karen Wilkinson.
Yes.
That was unbelievable book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. We published her book, and she's featured one out of the four people in the film on abductions that we did. We are the only Christian ministry that I'm aware of. And I know I sound like I'm boasting. I'm not. I'm just stating a fact. We have 10 films in the UFO series, and we're done. The last two, 9 and 10, will be released probably the end of March, because we've just inundated everything with these films. Number 4 is on the abduction phenomena. So Al Matthews, from your neck of the woods in Canada, Al was abducted since he was 5 years old. Karen Wilkinson was abducted since he was 5 or 6. Emil Jurek, who's actually patient 17, where we took the implant out of him. This is hard science, Rob. This isn't in the library reading a bunch of books. This is out in an operating theater taking the implant out of this guy's leg, and nobody can find it. We can't find it.
Well, Roger Lear did the same thing going back to the, mid-70s?
Yeah, and Roger was sort of a mainstay at our whole Watcher series. He appeared in every single film that we did. The late Richard Shaw and I did. Yeah. Roger's no longer with us. I consider him a great friend, as I did Richard. We did 11 films together. But all these people were taken and abducted, and this is where it ties back into the Genesis 3:15 narrative. Sperm is taken from the men, ovum is taken from the women. Hybrids are being created. And then in our film, The Cattle Mutilation, we put forth the idea, the theory, that the blood, first of all, this is the medical fact, bovine blood can be used and is being used in human transfusions. Bovine blood, the blood from a cow.
All right, we're going to have another darn cliffhanger. I'm sorry, LA, these are hard breaks.
That's good.
But you know what? I know you've got the listeners whether they're in their car, whether they're in their office, whether they're on a beach somewhere where it's warm. Damn you for not taking me to that beach. They're interested. And when we come back, more of this fascinating story from our guest this hour, the one and only L.A. Marzulli, his website where you can buy the DVDs, you can buy his books, and there's a lot more information at www.lamarzulli.net. The X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2. No, not 2. No, not yet. Is that a psychic impression? Who knows? 10 to midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.
All that a woman should be, and I dedicate my life to you all.
Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, to the greatest show on earth. Well, she was born in a fun house. She grew up on a wild mouse, driving a bumper car around the ground, and a big rig from town to town. She sleeps on a roller coaster. She looks like a girly poster. She did both fun.
I'm chuckling because every hour, Ellie, we have to play a Canadian song because up here in Canada, we have something that is called CanCon. So this last song that I played is by a friend of mine from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, who has to be one of the best, well, I'd say one of the top 5 best sound engineers in Canada and the United States, Mike McCurley.
Oh.
So Peter Bordley, if you're listening, who is the music director here at your hometown radio, Classic 1220, there you go, my friend. There's my CanCon for this hour. L.A. Marzulli's our guest, and L.A., please continue the cliffhanger.
Yeah, so cow blood, bovine blood, can be used in a human transfusion. It's medically approved. There were articles on it. We nailed this down. And we may have discovered why the cattle mutilations are ongoing and continuing. Genetic material is taken from the cow. There's no doubt about that. The cow is completely drained of blood. We see this over and over and over again. Eyes are cored out. Tongues are cored out. Sometimes the pericardium, which is the sac around the heart, is intact, but the heart's missing. Udders are gone. It's very grisly. We interviewed Rancher Miller, who had lost 16 head of cattle in 20 years. So, do the math on that.
Yeah, but
very strange.
I have to ask you, Ellie.
Yeah.
If these ETs can fly the universe, if they can, traverse time and space, why would they have to keep on mutilating cattle instead of just, biologically in a lab reproduce what they need?
Good question. Maybe they're not as advanced as some people think they are.
Oh, that's...
But I'll get into that.
Okay.
So, Miller lost 16 head. They're all mutilated. Blood can be used in human transfusions. When a woman finds herself pregnant, and she's not sure, okay, I'm pregnant, I'm married, I'm pregnant, this is good. And in the 3rd month, she's re-abducted, and the baby is taken from her. Talk to Karen Wilkinson on that.
We did.
Talk to Angela Beckman on that. That baby, that hybrid entity, needs a womb to grow to full term.
So these women are basically just incubators.
That's all they are. But the cattle mutilation, the blood and the genetic material, is used to create an artificial womb. And that is very, very disturbing. But that's conjecture. When was the last time anybody got on a ship and go, hey, can we see where the hybrids are incubating? Can we go there? I mean, it's not going to happen. But that's based on a lot of research, and it's conjecture, but that's what I think it is. They're creating artificial wombs.
Unbelievable. How does the medical community, how does the scientific community explain this? Somebody goes to the doctor does the ultrascan.
Right.
And they see the fetus inside the lady's womb.
Right.
She comes back for her checkup, and boom, no baby. And this isn't the first. There's just not one case that we're talking about here. We're talking about multiple cases.
Yeah.
Has the light gone on with these people and saying, what's wrong here? Where did the baby go?
But it all hails back to Genesis 3:15. The seed war. Your offspring will be at enmity, at war with the offspring of the woman. Then you get something very, very cryptic in the biblical prophetic narrative. Daniel chapter 2. Daniel's a guy about 2,500 years ago, and real smart guy. And this angelic messenger shows up and tells him, Daniel, seal up the words in this book until the time of the end. And then he gives all of us a huge supernatural clue. And that supernatural clue is this: men will run to and fro over the face of the earth, and knowledge will increase. Well, from 2,500 years ago to Gutenberg's printing press, it's pretty much flatline. From Gutenberg to here, it's a steady, slow rise to the Industrial Revolution. Then things start going through the roof. The 20th century is the age of every wonder that we enjoy in the modern era. And finally, knowledge increases exponentially. As we're speaking, men and women are running to and fro over the face of the earth. That book of Daniel is no longer sealed, Rob. It's no longer sealed. So when we go to Daniel, the prophet Daniel, chapter 2, verse 43, what do we read? Their seed, there's that seed word again, Genesis 3:15, there's the seed. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. My good friend Jim Williamson told me this. The word cleave is the same word that we get back in the Genesis account, where a man will leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. It's a marriage contract. There's no marriage contract anymore. They take sperm from the men, ovum from the women. They create artificial wombs. They deposit you back in your home. You go to the OBGYN. There's no fetal tissue. There's no anything. It's like, are you sure you were pregnant? Yeah, we saw the x-rays. We looked at the heartbeat. We know it's here. So it's high strangeness. It's very supernatural. It's very nefarious. There is a breeding program that's going on. Dr. David Jacobs talks about that in his book, Walking Amongst Us, the Hybrids. Al Matthews, he talks about the same thing. Hybrids walking, he actually came face to face with one, and that's all in the film. And that's how I actually met him. He was completely freaked out with what happened with this meeting with this woman. And she looked very human, but she wasn't. Look, it's high strangeness. I get that. Can I prove it? We can prove it to a point. We have the witnesses. We have physical evidence. We have the implants. We have the metal from the field. But, can we get anybody from the other side coming down, and interviewing? No, that's never going to happen. It's just never going to happen.
Ellie, with all the technology that's available to hackers these days, they've hacked into into different departments within the U.S. government. Why wouldn't a country not friendly to the United States get their hackers to hack in to the area where they believe or they suppose the truth behind the UFO scenario is being kept, retrieve that information, publish it like WikiLeaks did, and destroy the credibility of the existing government?
Well, it's not our government. I mean, this is the deep state. This is, these are the black budget, the secret ops, all this crazy stuff that happens. I mean, it is. I have a friend of mine who's sort of an insider. He doesn't feed me anything classified, but he'll give me intel that you can find. It's not, again, it's public domain intel, but you've got to really search for it. And, he just talks about the military industrial complex. That's what we have here. Look, there's stuff up at Wright Pat. I've had people come up to me at conferences. Several of them work there or had worked there, and they told me stories. It's all there. Eventually it will come out. But I think this is a scenario, and I'll sort of close or get ready to close by saying this. You have a nuclear event go off on this planet. It'll create the greatest climate of fear that the entire planet has experienced collectively. We experience it together because the grid's here, and the grid can light up. and we're all looking at it in real time. We're looking at the aftermath. We're looking at the bomb going off, the whole 9 yards. We're all terrified. Who wouldn't be? Are we looking at the extinction protocol? Are we looking at the end of the world as we know it? Is this going to go into a full nuclear exchange? That's when they show up, Rob, in my opinion. This is conjecture. That's when they show up as our saviors. They will tell us that they genetically manipulated all life on this planet. They created the world's civilizations, the world's earliest religions. Now at this critical juncture in human history, supposedly E.T., is back to usher mankind into a golden age. But that's been prophesied.
Sure.
Hypothetically
speaking, Ellie, if any country was to put their finger on the nuclear button,
right,
that would cause a nuclear exchange, do you think the ETs would intercept?
No, not this time. And this is like a really long, involved conversation, which we don't have time for.
Well, not this time, but the next time you're on.
Not this time, but the next time, yeah. But it has to do with, the angelic realm and seeing through time and all this kind of stuff. They're waiting, in my opinion, they are waiting for an event to go off. And that's when they show up. That's sort of like the curtain call. Now, that's conjecture. I could be wrong, but that's based on a lot of research. And I think, because fear is what drives them. That's the calling card of their kingdom, is fear. That's why they leave the cow in the farmer's field. You asked me that. Because the farmer goes out and gets his wife. She comes out and looks at it. Now she's terrified. Kids come out. They look at it. They're terrified. Coroner or the veterinarian comes out. He's perplexed. He doesn't know what's going on. Law enforcement comes out. Is a satanic cult. What are we looking at here? Mm-hmm. How many times has this happened? Blah, blah, blah. Newspaper reporter comes out. He takes pictures of it, runs a small, article about it with the pictures in the local paper. Fear, 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 fear. Like rings when you throw a rock in a pond, just expanding the fear. The calling card of darkness is always one of fear. And that's what they're doing.
L.A., I've got about 2 minutes left. I'd like to give you 1 minute to share your message with the X-Zone Nation tonight.
Well, look, first of all, I'm a biblical literalist, and I believe that I call it the guidebook of a supernatural because that's what it is.
Exactly.
We are in a window of time that is unprecedented. Just look at what's going on over in Israel. The question is, will it escalate? And at this point, we don't know. In my opinion, Israel will go into Lebanon. There's no doubt in my mind that they'll do that. The question is, what is the response from Iran and Turkey and Russia? Recently, there was a picture of all three heads of state from those countries on the same stage together. Putin was there, Erdogan from Turkey, and Khomeini from Iran. And what people need to understand, Khomeini is Shia Muslim, and Erdogan is Sunni. They've been at odds with each other for millennia, and yet they're there on the stage with Putin. That may be, that is Ezekiel 38, because those three nations are the first three nations listed in the Ezekiel 38 prophecy. Are we there? No, we're not. Am I looking at Ezekiel 38? Absolutely, keeping a very close eye on it.
L.A., I'd like to thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Always a great pleasure talking to you. And speaking about Tucker Carlson, he's going to, Putin actually agreed to be interviewed by him.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. You take care of yourself, my friend. Safe travels. And thank you for all the great work that you and your authors do in getting this information out there. We appreciate them.
Thanks, Rob. Take care.
Take care, buddy. Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, L.A. Marzulli, visit his website, www.lamarzulli.net. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we enter hour number 2 here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.